Okay, we're going to go on to our next speaker now. It gives me great pleasure to introduce Jen Whitfield from Texas A&M. And just to give you an idea of how many things Jen does for the math department there, she has 3 separate titles. I think that tells you a lot. The first title is she's the director of the online homework system. Close. She's also the personalized pre-calculus program manager, which is what she's going to talk to you about today. And in addition to that, she runs the Aggie Teach program. So the thing I want you to know about Jen is she's probably the most calm person I have ever met, and she really needs to be, because when I say that she administers online homework for students at Texas A&M, I mean 8,000 of them. So if WebAssign so much as slows down for an instant, Jen, I think, gets about, I don't know, 1,500 emails and just handles it like no one else, frankly, could. So in addition to doing all of that, Jen is a really an amazing teacher. And she has probably taught us more about one of the tools in WebAssign than anyone in our building knew. Jen really helped us figure out how to make the personalized study plan that's inside of WebAssign a much more effective tool for both teachers and students. And that's what she's going to talk to you about today. So I'm going to turn it over to Jen.
Good. Great. Thank you, Chris. Can you guys hear me okay? I think it's coming through there. Yeah, so I'm still going to talk to Lori during that social hour, though, about the stress relief things, because I did make a first note of that. I don't think you can ever have too many of those. So as Chris said, my name's Jen Whitfield. I am from Texas A&M University. We are heavy WebAssign users, so it is 8,000 students that we run through just in the math department each semester. So on an annual basis, we run about 16,000 students through there. Doing math things. But what I want to talk to you today is about the personalized study plan and how we've used this as a Calculus 1 preparation tool. I'm going to give you a little bit of background. It's about math placement. And so some of you might have some similar things going on at your institution. We've had limitations that we've had to deal with within our institution, and this personalized study plan for us has proved to be an exceptional solution for us. I do want to make a note that the slides that I'm presenting here, I did put them in a PDF format at this website here, so I don't know if you want to bring them up. You can be a little ahead of the game if you want, but I sure can. Quick draw. So it's www.math.tamu for Texas A&M University.edu. And then a slash, and you do need this tilde, and it's JWHITFLD. It's that 8-character limitation that, you know, our computer guys limit us to, and so the I and the E in the field did not come out. So there should be a link to there that says 2011 WAUG presentation. Is it working? Not yet. All right, well, I can always come back to this as a click of a button if you need to. All right, so a little bit of background on this. In 2003, our engineering department at A&M was awarded a NSF Step 1A grant. And the purpose of this grant was to increase the number of engineering graduates that they had. And they wanted to do this by redoing the first-year curricula. So this project went on from 2003 to 2008, and it gave about 120 additional engineering graduates. So they took it as a fairly successful program. There was a lot of other information that Dr. Jeff Freud did, and there's some articles that he's written on this particular grant if you're interested in that. But for our purposes here, it became clear at the end of this project that the efforts to further increase increased retention of STEM graduates should focus on improving success in mathematics. So, you know, I guess you can take it one of two ways, but engineering's problems now became math's problems, right? It's all about the math class. So a product of this Step 1A project was what we called at the time the Calculus Readiness Assessment Test, and it's a 33-question online timed test that students are supposed to not use a calculator for, but it's online, so all we can do is highly recommend it. This actually is now known as our math placement exam. Faculty in our department wrote the Calculus Readiness Assessment and it was faculty that have taught calculus a number of times and have seen the same issues that students have over and over and over and over. And so they created this test. In 2009, just a few years ago, we finally got it institutionalized that all incoming students actually have to take the test. But at the time, we used it just as a recommendation tool and said, well, you know, you got this score on it. You really are not ready for calculus. You should take pre-calculus. But there was nothing in place to prevent them from enrolling in calculus. So it didn't matter. I took AP calculus in high school. I'm obviously ready for calculus. I'm going to enroll in it. Or mom and dad would say something. And then they end up not being successful in their calculus course. And so one thing that we're actually on the brink of right now, for the first time, fall 2011, we do have a block on our Calculus 1 classes. And if you don't make a 22 or higher on this math placement exam, which I'll refer to as the MPE from now on, then you can't get into Calculus 1. And so this has been actually very instrumental in making our program successful this year, and a step in the right direction. So I don't know how well you can see this data up here, but this is from 2007, and this left column over here shows you all of the placement, the math placement test grade. It's a raw score, 33 on down. And this one correlates that we got the grades that they had in calculus, and A, B, or C is deemed successful. So through some statistical analysis, this gives you the probability of success in Calculus 1 based upon the score you got on your math placement exam. So right down here, I mean, obviously the percentage goes down. Right here, it's a 0.708, so a 71% chance of being successful in calculus if you score a 23. And then when you get to 22, it starts to drop in the 60s. This is 0.681, and then you get the 0.654. So this seemed to be a decent kind of cutoff score. And so we thought, okay, great. These guys go up to calculus. What do we do with these other guys? Well, we figured there's a range in which these guys, they probably don't have enough pre-calculus skills to be even, I guess, to really be successful in calculus. So we blocked 15 on down to say, you guys really probably need the full semester of pre-calculus. So the question and the head scratcher was, what do we do with these middle kids, the poor middle class, right? We always get left out. These bubble kids is what we refer to them. They've got enough skills to be successful in calculus, too many skills to really take full semester of pre-calculus, so what do we do? Well, Dr. Allen, who's the PI on this, the grant that we'll talk about here in a little bit, had this grand idea. What we'll do with these bubble students is we'll take this MPE, it's 33 questions, we'll break down the concepts on this MPE, and we'll mark, whichever ones they miss on their MPE, that's going to deem them weakness in a certain area in mathematics. So we're going to tie their weaknesses back to their MPE. We're going to generate them this personalized study plan where all they do is work on those concepts that they're weak in, and that way they're making the best use of their time. And then we're going to assign each student, don't get me wrong on this one. I say this a lot. I read this one time when I wrote it. I'm going to assign them a live online tutor. I think it was late, and I'm like, what other kind of tutor are we going to assign them? Like a non-live one? A dead one? So by live, I mean real time. You know those late nights when you read what you wrote, and you're like, oh my gosh. And this live online tutor is, okay, so we can have all of this support, and the students can get behind a computer. We can have the best content that we have, that we want to have in there with all this feedback, but this is the bubble student. This is the kid who was not really motivated to get to the upper level, but he's motivated enough to stay off of the bottom. So they still need the prober. They still need the person who's going to give them the shock treatment when they need it. They need somebody to answer their questions when they don't understand something. So we felt this live interaction with a tutor was also going to be helpful. So great, we have this great idea. We think we've got it now. Okay, so students who have a 22 or higher go to Cal 1. The bubble students we're going to run through a summer online program. That way they don't have to come to A&M's campus. And then anything that is less than 16, which would be 15 or below, then they're going to go to pre-calculus. All right, so we wrote it in the form of proposal, an NSF Step 1B grant. shipped it off to NSF, crossed your fingers, and got funded on it. So it was a $1.9 million grant that we're actually in the kind of in the heat of the battle with still. These are the PIs on the grant. So it's just like any grant, right? Great, we got funded. Now you have to do all the work that you said you were going to do. So we sat down and we started thinking, all right, great. So here we go. First, we've got to get this personalized study plan going. Well, what are we good at? What can the instructors at Texas A&M do? Well, we're great teachers, so we know our pedagogy. We know what to teach. We know how to teach it. We know how to remediate it. We've got that part down. We can do anything with the online tutoring. A&M has site license through a company called Sabas Centra. I don't know how many of you are familiar with that, but it's a real powerful online conferencing software that gives you a great virtual classroom. So the online tutoring and hiring the tutors and training the tutors and all that, we knew that we had the capacity to do that. We couldn't create the content. So we do have some very talented people on our staff and on our faculty that will create videos through Camtasia. They can insert quizzes in there, and they're very proficient in Camtasia. They've taught calculus for many, many years, so they know all the questioning. We can create our own questions. We know the feedback that they need, and we can definitely write the solutions. So these are all our strengths, and this is what we're going on. Then the question came on, okay, great, so we can do all this, but how are we going to get it up and online for the students? Who's going to create this personal study plan that we need? How are we going to deliver all the content and its assets, right? So we've got these questions. Do you make them all multiple choice so that all they have to do is click and answer? I mean, if we want them to actually input mathematical expressions, how are we going to handle this? Collection and tracking of student data. We want to do some sort of logging because we've got to report all this back to NSF, right? I mean, there's all this data and all the reports and articles that have to come out of this as well. Recording scores and student grades, displaying the progress for the students. How are we going to do all this? And we do, again, in our department, we've got a lot of talent, and there is a few professors who have the capability of actually constructing something like this. But we were funded in October, and the product has to be done in May. We're having these conversations in November. So we're like, how are we going to get this all done? And then and then collecting money. For our department, it's a huge issue. Anything to deal with money at A&M is a big issue, actually. You have to go all the way to the signature of the governor, practically. So collecting money to make this self-sustaining was an issue. And then the last one is just the management and maintenance of the data system. So great, if we do have somebody that can create it, then who's going to manage it over the next 10 years for us to implement this and actually be a sustainable product for the NSF? Well, this is what I like. I'm all into candy, right? So this is when the chocolate met the peanut butter, essentially, and we have our Reese's peanut butter cups. And this is when the partnership between WebAssign and A&M began. So ironically enough, I had come to visit WebAssign probably 2.5 years ago. We're sitting at some restaurant that's in Bull Durham. I mean, it's in the movie Bull Durham. John told us the whole story about it. And John prompts, okay, well, what kind of things do you got going on at Texas A&M? And I said, well, we just submitted this proposal, and I go through this. And he goes, well, we're about to release a PSP at the end of the spring. And I said, really? Well, that's interesting. So I kind of stay hush-hush for a while with it, and then take it when we have this discussion, like, well, what are we going to do about the online delivery? And I said, well, WebAssign has a PSP. Maybe we can get with them and see how well it's going to work. We have been extremely thrilled and happy with the performance of it with the relationship. Maybe if you talk to them, I don't know. I'm pretty sure. I think there's a filter on my email that takes them somewhere else. But somebody finds them because I get an immediate response also. So it's been absolutely wonderful. So our final product then, WebAssign delivers, manages, and maintains the PSP. So they do everything regarding the delivery of it, the display of it, the tracking, the logging, and all of that for us. And we simply input the content for it. And so it's a lot of going back and forth. It's a lot of large spreadsheets that say, here's the question that we want this video to go with it, this PowerPoint goes with it, this portion of a textbook goes with it. It's a very large spreadsheet. And I'll give you a tour of this, obviously, later. So A&M, one of our faculty did write a pre-calculus textbook that this is kind of all built around. We have also used material from Stitz and Ziegler, which is one of the open source materials that is available in WebAssign, and you'll meet them later on. We created PowerPoint presentations, and then we did also some problems. All right, so I want to take you on a little tour of the PPP. We call it PPP, Personalized Pre-Calculus Program. Oops. So the first thing I just want to show you, this is our website that we handle for the actual program. It's nsfstep.tamu.edu is what the URL is. There's not a whole lot of information that I really want to highlight here outside of the fact that this is how we disseminate all the information for our students. And I can answer more individual questions on that. I really want to focus on what the PSP is today. So, all right, so let's take a tour of what this PSP is. Now, if everything goes right, I did a bunch of work before we actually started. All right, so this is, let me go back to the home. So this is the student view. Oh, no, I just have to remember what class I was in there. That will be really scary. I have no idea which one I took that in. Okay, well, anyway, I'll fly by the seat of my pants on that. So this is the home screen, and then down here in the bottom left, when you activate the PSP, you'll start seeing that in the home screen. Has anybody used WebAssign's PSP? Great, I am delivering brand new information. Good. So when there are books that have the PSP available in it, you have to check a box that says enable the PSP, and it comes up immediately when you choose the textbook. So when you go through all of the creating of the course, there's an option there that you'll see that says enable PSP if there is a PSP available for that textbook. I believe that's how it works. All right, so if I click on overview right here, this just basically blows up that bottom left corner and you get a little bit larger view of it. All right, so there's 4 chapters that we have identified at A&M. So keep in mind, this is all customized stuff. A&M came up with the table of contents. A&M came up with what it is they want in there. WebAssign has hosted it all for us. They've made it all happen. They've made all the the display look pretty and all of that. So we said we want 4 chapters, basically. Graphs and functions, factoring, solving equations and inequalities, algebraic fractions, exponents, and radicals, and then trigonometry. So this is all the stuff that we feel students need to be strong in for pre-calculus in order to be successful in calculus. All right, and then we have each of these expanded, and now this is the second version. We did this last summer. You find out all the kinks, and we expanded, and we actually probably amplified it like 3-fold in PPP2. So there's 13 sections for graphs and functions, and what you see is that they're bite-sized pieces. So 1.1 is characteristics of functions, 1.2 evaluating. Then you get into all your specifics, your polynomials, your rationals, piecewise defined, one-to-one, exponential logs, and then you get into solving and applications of them. For category 2, again, there's 14 of them. That's all about factoring, and you can see how specific we got here. It's factoring in quadratic form, factoring by grouping, factoring quadratics, because we're trying to identify specifically what it is that they're having difficulty with. So I don't want it multi-concept at this time. I want it single concept to identify what they are actually having problems understanding. All right, and then chapter 3 is shorter. It's just 5 sections. It's about algebraic fractions, exponents, and radicals. That's basically all your manipulation of exponents and adding and subtracting, multiplying, dividing fractions. And then the trigonometry, I remembered where I went. That is amazing. This should go down in history that I actually clicked on the right thing one time. And then trigonometry, we broke it down into 7 basic things that you need to know before you do it. All right, so here's the idea. What we have each of our students do in our program is take the chapter quiz first for each of the 4 chapters. It works like this. WebAssign so graciously modified it for us where you can now have a unique chapter test bank. So what we've done at A&M is said, all right, what we want is 2 questions from each of these subsections. So for the trigonometry chapter test, you're going to have 14 questions in the test bank. They're unique test questions. So if you wanted, you could make those multi-concept questions because they're not going to appear again back down here. Okay? We're working on making that even better. I have some great ideas to give to WebAssign regarding that. But right now we've taken a huge jump ahead. And so the student takes the chapter quiz. It's essentially 2 questions from each chapter, questions we've identified to be in that chapter quiz. Student works through all of those, and I'll show you an example of that in a second. The results of their chapter quiz then populates all of their section bars, if you will. Okay, so what this tells me is I want you to know that I purposefully got some of these wrong. I don't want you to think that I really got a 57%. And I teach math at A&M. No wonder we've got problems, right? All right, so but this would tell me that I don't need to really spend my time learning or remediating myself on angles and their measures. I got 100% on that one. Where we might want to start is here, where I got the 22%. We have students take all 4 chapter tests, because if you take a chapter test, and we've set the bar at 80%, and I have some advice on that if we want to talk about it later. But if you get a green bar up here at the chapter level, then that means all your section bars are green too. You're proficient in that. You don't need to spend your time studying that. You can go on and spend some time on the red bars, if you will, or the yellow bars. All right, so if this is my personal study plan, I would probably start right there with graphs of trigonometric functions, because that seems to be an area where I've got a lot of improvement needed. So I would recommend then the kids come over here and you click on the tutorial button, and this takes you to the tutorial page. And this again is content that we have put into WebAssign, or that we've given to WebAssign and they've put it in. This up here is a PDF version of just the portion of the textbook that faculty member wrote. And it has exercises, it's got explanations. It's a pretty typical textbook, and then it also has solutions of all the exercises in it. So they could go to that. This came up as suggested tutorial that I need based upon the answers on my input. Okay, so because I got something wrong, this one surfaced then as something that I need to do. These are additional ones that may not pertain exactly to the things that I got wrong, but still might be interesting or would be of good value to do. Anything with this little movie strip means it's a, yeah, okay? And then what we did is these are little like PDF files, if you will, of the PowerPoint presentation that was used to create the video. So the students theoretically should, if you're going to watch the video on graphing tangent and cotangent transformations, then you should come down here and print off the PDF copy that's got that, so that when you watch the video, you can take notes as you go along and you've got something to do. Okay? So let's say the students went the tutorial. They feel like they're ready now to increase this from a red bar to something else. So when they feel like they are ready, they can come take this practice quiz. Now, I do want to say that today I'm focusing on the PSP, but remember another component of our program is the online tutor. So that is another tutorial piece, if you will, that they could use to beef up or ramp up their math skills for that particular concept. All right, so let's say they're ready to roll. So they can come back in here and take the practice quiz. Let's see, 4.4. I was going to pull up 4.2 because that's where a lot of the Stitz-Ziegler is. But anyway, this, so they would come in here and they would answer some of these questions. So I'm just going to click, probably not get a whole lot of these right. All right, and I think that's enough for you to kind of get the feel of what I'm doing. So they would retake this practice test And now they get the results of what so this one I actually got right. How about that? And then here's the famous practice another version button that WebAssign has. And so if they wanted, they could come and do another randomization of that. Now this right here is problem specific. And this is where a lot of the Stitz-Ziegler videos would come up here. These are videos and other assets that are tied to questions similar to these. So you can watch the video, read the portion of the textbook, or also print off that PDF copy of the PowerPoint slides that correlate with the video. So students have an opportunity to learn at the question level too. So you went through tutorials, you thought you were ready for the practice quiz, you took the practice quiz, there were still a few things that you got wrong. Now you've got an opportunity to go to the question and actually do it. Another phase of our project now that we are working on is to try and provide feedback to the students about their answer choices. So giving them little hints, little nudges about, all right, you answered it this way. Remember, when you do this type of problem, you should look at blah, blah, blah. So a little bit of feedback for them to try and do a little bit better in the future. All right, so that's the opportunity to learn at the question level. I can come over here and look at the overview. And what you notice, I don't know what my score was on that particular one, but it was definitely less than 22%. So what you notice is that the bars don't move backwards. Okay, so if I didn't get higher than 22%, I didn't advance my bar. But if I get lower than 22%, it just takes the best of that. If I would have actually did that correctly, I would have gotten probably a green bar there, and then I go on to a different section. The object is to get all green bars here, and you go back then and take your chapter quiz. Your chapter quiz stays at, so my chapter quiz will stay at 57% until I go back and retake it again. When I retake it, it then repopulates all these bars again as well. Okay? So improving on here does not affect my question or my chapter test at all. The only way I can improve that is if I actually go and retake my chapter test. So the process we do, take your chapter test, work on your sections, try to get these to all green bars, okay? And I have said, all right, guys, if you get 78%, that's really kind of close enough to 80. Go ahead and leave that one yellow and work on something else. So the students get really frustrated if they're just like battling the one question for some syntax or whatnot. So anyway, then once they could get all 4 green bars for all 4 chapter quizzes, then they go back and take their math placement exam. And it should have been probably, I mean, our course runs 6 weeks in the summer. So it's 6 weeks since they took that math placement exam prior. Now when we go back in, I think we still have a long enough window to assess or understand they didn't just memorize the MPE answers or questions that were on it. So they go back. Generally, in every case last year, students who took it seriously, which means students that actually worked on their PSP and increased their bar color, if you will, improved on their math placement exam score higher than 22 to be placed in the calculus class. What we tell them is you don't need to shoot for 22, though. If you're running through this program, you really need to shoot for a 25 or higher if you really want to be successful in calculus. Okay? Let me look at my notes and make sure that all right, so that's the student experience. What I want to show you, too, are some powerful tools that WebAssign has for the instructor. So what I'm going to do is take you to a live class here. So this is actual students that do this. We break them into sections of 15 to 20 students, and we assign one tutor, 15 to 20 students. We feel like that's a good number for them to actually have an opportunity for success with these students. All right, so if you notice, when you enable the personal study plan in WebAssign, you get an additional tab up here. You're probably used to the assignments and the resources tab, but when the personalized study plan is enabled, you'll get a PSP tab up there. And here's your settings. You can play with them. That's where you set your bar, 70%, 80%, whatever it is that you want. All right, so this right here gives an average score. This is Lisa Cox's class. She's got 13 students in this particular class. The average score on the chapter test for chapter 1 is 50%. So this is her class average for each of the chapter tests. This piece of data over here tells me how many of the students have actually participated in it. So 11 of the 13 students have taken that test, and that's how that average is calculated. Now when I click on the bar, this is the really cool thing, and this is the huge improvement that WebAssign did that has proven to be amazing, is allowing us to see all of the students. So this is all of the students' scores on the Chapter 1 test, and if I activate this drop-down menu, then you can choose. This is 1.1, so this is the section. So you can see that Lisa's kids are doing very well at working on their PSP in section 1.1. So she's probably covered those a number of times in her tutoring sessions. And you scroll down and you can see it, you know, for any of the sections, obviously. I think you get the idea. I can break it down even further and see exactly what the students did. So this one looks a little interesting. It's a yellow bar. So when I click on the student's name, you get what you're kind of familiar with, and that is the question that the student actually was generated, and then their responses. So you go in there, and that's how we have our tutors actually base their tutoring sessions on, is figuring out which question most of your students had difficulty with, and those are the ones we want you to highlight in your tutoring sessions. So you can break it down and see exactly their input and the question randomization that they were delivered. And then, of course, this is, you know, if you're familiar with WebAssign's assignments, you'll see that a lot of this environment actually looks very familiar. Okay, I think that is all I wanted to cover for the user experience. Oh, no, here's one more. Sorry. So this is the log info for this one particular student. This was, again, a huge upgrade that WebAssign implemented for us. The long list that I gave them from PP1 to PPP version 1 to 2. We actually now have a log stamp for when the students logged in and did their responses. So if you're familiar with the assignments page, this looks very familiar. You can see when they downloaded it and when their response. So response 1 was given on Saturday, June 4th at this particular time. So this allows the tutor to go in and say, yeah, I see that you've worked on your PSP for a little bit and you have this 50%, but I noticed in the last 3 or 4 days you haven't gone in to do anything and work on your PSP. If you're truly going to get this program done in 6 weeks so that you can get into your calculus class for the fall, I need you to start working. So this has been huge for us just to try and track when the students are actually using the system. Okay, I'm going to go back here now to the slideshow, and I want to show you a little bit about one of our sessions. I think that I have a little bit of time. So it's kind of deviating from the WebAssign. This is the second part then of the second component of our course, and that is the online tutoring. So what I have here, this is a recording of the tutoring sessions. So we use Centra in order to power our online sessions. What you can see, this is Mrs. Sledge's class. She's up there. Her microphone is got a yellow square behind it. That means that she's going to be the one talking when I hit play here. And then down here you see a list of all the students that are attending her online session. So this was live at one time, and you'll see students raise their hand. You'll hear students ask questions. You'll see her write on the whiteboard. It's a very virtual classroom. But each of these sessions, the tutoring sessions, are also recorded, which is what we're viewing right here, so that students that miss a particular session can go back in and see what their tutor covered and what content was covered that particular day. So I just want to play this for a little bit to give you a snapshot.
And the second one is the square root of x plus 2 over 4. And I'm going to tell you, both of these are problems I used last week in a Cal 1 class, and they had to do this algebra. So I'm going to put you in your breakout room real quick, and I want y'all to work these out for me.
Okay, so what just happened right there was she hit a button in there, and it sends kids into what she calls the breakout room, and it puts them in groups of 2. So I think she's got 16 students, so it put them in 8 different rooms in partners. So in a traditional classroom, it would be doing like what your elbow partner or whatever they would call it sitting there, and you guys work on these two problems sitting there. Virtually, you do it in class in what we call breakout rooms. So she sent the kids into their breakout rooms. They worked on it in their rooms, and she brought them back. The recording doesn't capture anything in the breakout room, so that's why it just comes back automatically.
You're back. Okay, the first two problems are the one, that are on the whiteboard now are the ones that I gave you. The last one is one that was brought up by Chris. I think it was one that was on, or something similar to it was on the practice quiz for Chapter 3. And when you first look at it, it doesn't look like it's a fraction. So if I could just direct your attention.
So I'm going to fast forward a little.
Number 3 and all the rest of them. And then you work it and for the BINUS has a different, because remember, basically multiply term squared or times denominator.
All right,
Hang on just a minute, Joshua. And it's a binomial. Okay, Joshua, go ahead. The conjugate
variant. Sorry, I fast forwarded, but this is what I wanted you to see right here.
Minus the last term squared. And of course, the denominator stays as it is. So we end up with 4 times x minus 16 over 2 square roots of x minus 4. The first one, notice, we're rationalizing the denominator.
All right, so over there, Joshua has a question.
Hang on just a minute, Joshua.
So he hit an icon on his thing that raised his hand. He's got a question.
On number 2, if you're done with number 3, could you explain again why we don't have to do it a negative sign?
Yeah, yes, I'll be glad to.
So I think that kind of gives you an idea of what's going on in it.
Number 1, we have this term and this.
Okay, so I might have stopped this. Why is that doing that? Just turn it all the way down. All right, so that just gives you a little bit of an idea of then the extra tutorial that we feel at A&M. We believe in the WebAssign system. We think that it's a great learning tool, the PSP. It gives them the opportunity to do things at their own pace. But for mathematics, we also believe that that personal interaction is vital to actually learn the content. And that's one thing that separates us from a lot of other platforms, I guess, that are out there, and one of the reasons why WebAssign was a great solution for us along with our tutoring. So in the tutoring sessions, the kids can write on the whiteboard as well. They've got vocal capabilities. There's a text chat feature and all that kind of stuff that allows them to use it as a virtual classroom. So just a few last things here. I did this on the fly. I was looking at Lisa's courses that she had created for you. It's a good thing she was the first speaker, because then I thought, I should probably do that for them too. So I went in and created this course called WAUG 2011 PSP Practice. And then this is the course key. You can self-enroll into that one if you want to go in. I've activated the PSP. You can go in as a student and play around with that. The one thing that you won't have is student data, because there's no students. So when I showed you Lisa's students, you're not going to really be able to see anything, but I would recommend trying to just go to the roster. Or I guess I could, I don't know. Anyway, I can put you in a class. If you email me, I can put you in one of my classes, and you can kind of see some student data there as well. All right, so then the last thing is, where do we want to go from here? And I haven't had this conversation with WebAssign yet. So this is for everybody's information. We want to do this for other classes too. So this is focusing on engineering. And remember, it's because it came out of that Step 1A grant from the 2003 NSF grant that the engineering department was awarded. But we really need this, and there's a great need for this in our business calculus classes as well. So we want to take a similar idea, the same idea, but take it for content for our applied calculus courses. Because right now, they take a math placement exam, but we don't have anywhere to put them if they don't do well. We don't have remedial courses at A&M. So we just say, well, it doesn't look like you're prepared, but here you go. Or go to the community college and go. So we really need to get something in place like this for our business calc ones. The math placement exam currently is not in WebAssign. We house that on a server on our campus right now. So The students take the exam and everything from our servers. We've talked with WebAssign about getting the MPE there. It's not a WebAssign issue. It's a Texas A&M administrative issue. But that is a goal of ours, is to actually get the MPE into WebAssign. And then the third thing here is to make this program a transportable, adaptable, and make it applicable for other institutions. Texas A&M has a lot of other, like there's a Texas A&M system, right? So we have a Texas A&M Corpus Christi and a Texas A&M Kingsville. I think there's 12 institutions within the Texas A&M system, and we're currently working with West Texas A&M, Texas A&M Corpus Christi, and Texas A&M Commerce to try and get this product, the PSP, to their institution. And the benefit and kind of the real beauty of this is there's different clientele at West Texas A&M. They're in Amarillo, Texas, which is in the Panhandle, and we're kind of down in southeastern Texas. They have a high percentage of students that actually transfer in. We don't have a whole lot of transfer students. We've got kids, we got the 18-year-olds that come in. So they have different clientele. They've got different calculus classes. They've got smaller classes. There's our 20, 30 kids in there. So the question is, and we've written another proposal to NSF, it's called a TWOS grant, to see if we can get funding to see if they can use our PSP, what aspects of our PSP work for them, and what parts would they have to get content to come into. So do you like our videos, or do you want to make your own videos? Because WebAssign can clone this for them, right, Chris? You told me that the other day. So WebAssign can clone the PSP specifically for them and then make any adaptations according to what they feel like they need for content in their course. So if we can get funding to see how well this works, then that's really what we want to do, is how customizable is this for other people to do at their institutions to make something that you like that works for you and your students at your institution. So that's kind of where we're headed, or that's our hopefully where we're going. So my contact information is here. It's let me say it just by letters, jwhitfld@math.tamu.edu. Is there any questions I can answer real quick? Yeah.
First question is, how many of the students took this PSP, and were they all placed in Calc 1?
Okay, so the question was how many students took the PSP and were they all placed in Calc 1? Last year, we did it purely on grant funds. So we didn't charge the students any fee to be in it. We offered it to them, and there was not that hard cutoff that said if you don't get a 22, you can't get in. So last year, we were fighting a little bit harder battle. We put it out there. 78 students said, yeah, we'll take this for free. Sure, no problem. 33 of them actually completed their PSP. So the actual response rate and the participation rate was very low, but all 33 of those students who participated in it improved their MPE 22 or higher in order to be placed in Calc 1. Now, did the other students get placed in Calc 1? Sure, because there was no cutoff last year. So they went in also. This year, with the cutoff in place, and we have also now started to work on the sustainability. So NSF wants you to be able to take this project and sustain it after grant funds run out. And so our sustainability now has implemented a fee, and we charge $100 for them to run through the semester, or for the 6-week course. And that $100 gets them the PSP, access to their tutor, and all of that. So when you compare it to a community college pre-course or pre-calculus course, if they had to go take, it's a pretty reasonable price. So with the implementation of the fee, and with the implementation of the cutoff, and you can't enroll now, the block on Math 151, right now we're running 8 sessions. We just started our 4th session, and we have 160 students enrolled already. And so we still have 3 more sessions to fill. So I'm predicting that this summer we're going to run 200 students through this program. And I don't have that data, obviously, yet. But most of them, I mean, you saw that 11 out of 13 of Lisa's students were actively participating. And that was the first group. Session 4, we put 40 students in there. That tutor agreed to run 2 sections of 20 students and get paid double the money. So we pay our tutors too, by the way. So We pay them $1,500. So we pay them $25 an hour, and we think that that in order to really do this, it's 60 hours. And they have their tutoring sessions are 3 times a week for 2 hours. So they've got 6 hours just dedicated to delivery. And then the other 4 would be preparatory work, emails back and forth, training on all of, on the technologies, that type of thing. So hopefully this year we're going to get better results just because we've instituted the fee. You get a lot more motivation when mom and dad have paid for something. And then also that cutoff score. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Are you saying going from Calc 1 to Calc 2?
Yeah, they should have both Calc 1 and Calc 2 when they come to them, but they forget everything. They don't even remember pre-calculus.
No, yeah. Yeah, so I don't know if there's anything in place in WebAssign with that.
It's being worked on.
It's being worked on. It's in the works, yeah. So I do want to end with this one thing, is that this is only one of a number of projects that we've worked on with WebAssign and customizing stuff that we've wanted. So this is, I think there's probably 3 projects that I can think of off the top of my head that we've done. Okay, well, I do appreciate your attention. I'm happy to answer any questions or talk to you during the social hour as well. So thank you very much. Do you want this one?
Okay, we're scheduled to have a bit of a break. We are running a little bit late, so what if we reconvene at 4:30? Would that be all right? I'll give you a moment to stretch your legs and